When thinking about enduring the hardships of existence, as well as becoming a more virtuous person, it is hard not to stumble upon the philosophy of Roman Stoicism. In this video, I want to talk and reflect about some life lessons that we can learn from ancient Stoic wisdom. But first, allow me to clarify what none of the popular YouTube videos on Stoicism go through the trouble of mentioning, and that is the fact that ancient Stoicism is much more than just motivational quotes. The philosophy is grounded in logical, physical, and ethical theoretical frameworks that are usually neglected, but these are actually what give rise to the more popular practical teachings of Roman Stoicism. What I'm trying to say here is that if you really want to take Stoicism seriously, you're probably going to have to reconcile the theoretical frameworks they had in ancient times with the ones we have in modernity, for the lessons to really be applicable to us. I actually plan on shedding some light on this idea in a future video, but for now, don't worry too much about it. For a simple first glance, you can get away with just taking of this video what you find useful and applicable to you. Just keep in mind that there is much more to Stoicism than just this. With that out of the way, let's get into it. This is a very simple idea that tells us that there are two types of things, those within our power and control and those outside of our control, of which we cannot do anything about. Things inside the sphere of our control include our opinions, judgments, aversions, desires, and in general, our own actions. Outside of our choice, then, falls whatever that doesn't form part of our actions. That is, health, luck, the works of nature, and so on. We can recognize in our daily lives that things like traffic, bad weather, our devices not working, our favorite team losing the final, someone insulting us, these kinds of things are not up to us. They are not our responsibility. What is up to us is our judgments of these things and the control of our impulses, or as the Stoics would say, the decisions we make about to what impressions we assent. As the ancient Roman emperor and Stoic Marcus Aurelius said, if the problem is something in your own character, who's stopping you from setting your mind straight? Following from and very closely related to the dichotomy of control is the idea of acceptance. If you cannot change your circumstances, why not accept them? Marcus Aurelius wrote that everything has to submit, but only rational beings can do so voluntarily. Epictetus drew here the famous analogy of a dog leashed to a cart. The dog can either hurt himself attempting and failing to fight against the movement of the cart, or he can just go along with it, enjoying the view. Why then get angry at the world, as if it was useful, as if the world was ever going to notice you? Furthermore, you can ask yourself of whatever your circumstances are, is it really so hard to believe that this can ever happen to somebody, even if that somebody is you? It was clear for the Roman Stoics, as it should be for us now, how to apply this into their lives. If you should die, must you die groaning? If you should be imprisoned, do you have to grieve at that too? If you should go into exile, can you not depart with a smile? This is where Epictetus famously expressed, you can chain my leg, but not even Zeus can overcome my power of choice. The faults and mistakes of others fall outside of the things we can't control, so you already know what the conclusion is going to be, but we can elaborate a bit more on this. We can think of thieves, cowards, traitors, liars, and so on as people just like us, but who value material possessions or personal advantages more than virtue, composed, according to the Stoics, of wisdom, justice, courage, and moderation. Is it not the case then that every such situation can be reduced to following the wrong axioms, which is to say, having the wrong perception of what is ethical and what is not, what is true and what is not, what is valuable and what is not? If what they believe to be good for them is wrong, then Marcus Aurelius wrote, show them that, prove it to them, instead of losing your temper. So other people hurt me, he later added, that's their problem. Their character and actions are not mine. What is done to me is ordained by nature, what I do by my own. When you think about it like this, it now sounds more reasonable that having pity or sympathy for someone who did something wrong might be a more appropriate response than getting angry. This is because they are the ones misguided, not you. And also, being angry would constitute having a negative emotion, and this has the potential to get you out of your rationality. But why in the world would you want either of those things? In Epictetus' discourses, you can find the final word of advice on this, encapsulated in just one sentence. Drop this readiness to be offended and to hate. And to me, this sounds like something every one of us in the modern world should hear every now and then. Perhaps especially the people causing drama in the media, arguing on Twitter, fighting on YouTube comment sections, and so on. This view that we should not let others' offenses affect us since they are not up to us can be easily extended to misfortunes in general. The fact that no one ever escapes the sufferings of life and that this makes us stronger is a conclusion that everyone has arrived at. From ancient religions to modern philosophers, you can find versions of this same message. Even Seneca wrote as a consolation to his mother that everlasting misfortune does have one blessing, that it ends off by toughening those whom it constantly afflicts. He later added that no condition is so bitter that a stable mind cannot find some consolation in it. And this actually echoes what Epictetus had to say about adversities. On whatever piece of misfortune befalls you, he said, turn to yourself and inquire what power you have for turning it to use. Considering a different perspective, Musonius Rufus said, reflect on how many things have already happened to you in life in ways that you did not wish, and yet they have turned out for the best. This is just more of the same. Let's abandon what is not up to us and recognize that what is within our control is the judgment we make of things. In doing this, we have the potential to see a good situation in what we would have otherwise considered a tragedy. Marcus Aurelius wrote something relevant to this. Instead of saying how unfortunate that this has happened to me, say, it's fortunate that this has happened and I have remained unharmed by it, not shattered by the present or frightened of the future. It could have happened to anyone, but not everyone could have remained unharmed by it. He wrote the reminder, it can ruin your life only if it ruins your character. Otherwise, it cannot harm you. Reading texts by and about the Roman Stoics, you find that they often talk about the importance of philosophy. It is understood that Stoicism started in ancient Greece with worldviews involving logic, physics, and ethics. Then, in another period, the Roman Stoics extracted the practical consequences of those theories and put them into use. The lesson here is important. Get your philosophies in order, and then go on and try to change the world. Marcus Aurelius wrote to himself, no random actions, none not based on underlying principles. And this implies something else that we could expand upon. At least in matters of how to live well, knowing the theory is not enough. And bragging about knowing the theory, well, is not even right. In the Handbook of Epictetus, his disciple Arrian captured the analogy. Just like the sheep do not vomit the grass to show their shepherds how much they have eaten, but digest the pasture to produce wool and milk, we should also, instead of spitting our theorems at the uninstructed, show for ourselves the acts which come from their digestion. Musonius Rufus also had something to say about what was more important, theory or practice. After a short Socratic-like dialogue about physicians, sailors, and musicians who know the theory of their crafts very well but have no experience in them, and comparing them to their counterparts who might not be so well versed in the theory but are very experienced, he goes on to say, how now, in the view of these conclusions, could knowledge of the theory of anything be better than becoming accustomed to act according to the principles of the theory, if we understand that application enables one to act, but theory makes one capable of speaking about it? He concluded, therefore, upon the learning of the lessons appropriate to each and every excellence, practical teaching must follow invariably, if indeed from the lessons we have learned we hope to derive any benefit. And that's it for this video. Hopefully you can find some use in all of this. If you want to learn more, I'll leave several resources in the description, and if you'd like to leave your own reflections or opinions in the comment section, that's encouraged. Finally, if you like this type of content, consider subscribing for all the interesting stuff coming soon. Until the next one.